Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We'll get started in just a few minutes while people are jumping on here. Welcome, everyone, and we'll just give it a couple more minutes. People are still joining. Give it 2 more minutes. We'll try to start at 1:05. And while we're waiting, I'll encourage people to use the Q&A. If you have a question, I do have a presentation I'm going to go through, but look to the Q&A if you have any questions you want to get in there. Okay, we'll just give it another minute. Okay, it's 1:05. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the Roseland RFQ pre-bid submission meeting. We're going to run through a presentation about the RFQ, about investments in the area, about some of the visioning process that the community was involved in, and then we're happy to take your questions. Feel free to use the Q&A box. You should be able to see that in your what do they call it? There's your slide deck here. So with that, I will get started. Okay. So today we'll just do some welcome and introductions, talk about area investments and Invest Southwest, talk about the RFQ process, how this will work, specifically look at the Roseland RFQ and some of the information we included in there. And then we will talk about wrap up and next steps. So from Department of Planning and Development today, we have Chris Yang, John Law, myself, Erica Selke. I'm the lead planner for the Far South region with Department of Planning and Development. Michael Pennisnack. I will give Michael's contact information in a bit. He will be your main point of contact for questions after this webinar and to actually submit your qualifications. We also have Gerardo Garcia, who is Deputy Commissioner of the Planning and Design Group, and then David Conway, who is our communications person. So to start, I'd like to talk about investments in Roseland. This is a map that shows some of the bigger investments that have happened, and this is in Roseland and in Pullman. You can see the 3 RFP sites there on the Michigan Avenue corridor, which is an Invest Southwest corridor. So I think many people have heard about the Pullman National Monument, which is this fantastic visitor center that just opened on Labor Day 2021. If you haven't been down, please go visit. It's really incredible and great to have, great to have an actual national park in Chicago, National Monument. Pullman Park, which is on the I-94 Expressway over to the east, is almost completely built out with hundreds of millions of dollars of investment and tons of jobs. You have the Whole Foods distribution center, the Method factory, Amazon, then some different retail options like Walmart. Moving back into Roseland, the Department of Planning and Development has recently completed a planning study for the Roseland Medical District. This plan will unlock about $25 million in state funding that's allocated for the medical district. So there's a lot of great opportunities for new development related to health and wellness. Invest Southwest includes all new streetscapes along Michigan Avenue and 111th Street. So this will be at least 20 million for the Michigan Avenue piece, but they're also going all the way over to Pullman. So this will be a huge change, completely new streetscape from building front to building front. And then, of course, the Red Line extension. So the Red Line extension is supposed to cost about $3.6 billion and will bring the Red Line down to the far south region of Chicago with a station at Michigan Avenue, which is right next to one of the RFP sites. So just to dive a little bit deeper into the CTA Red Line extension, I think people are sometimes skeptical of this because it's such a big project and it's been around a long time, but this just shows how far in the process CTA has come in getting the Red Line extension up and running. So they're currently in preliminary engineering and actually have a bid out for an engineering firm to start that work. And also yesterday, City Council subcommittee approved a TIF district for the Red Line extension, which would generate up to $1 billion as a city match for the construction. If things keep going as they are, which have been really positive, we could see construction starting in 2005 with the Red Line actually open for operation in 2009. So it really is, it sounds like a long way away, but it really is around the corner. So I just wanted to, really push that and show that there's been significant progress made. And one of the RFP sites is right there with a great opportunity to provide transit-oriented development. Invest Southwest. This is Mayor Lightfoot's main initiative to bring investment to the south and west sides of Chicago. There have been a number of different investments in the corridor. So Invest Southwest, if you don't know, covers 10 south and west side communities and 12 corridors. We're, of course, down here in Roseland, Pullman. And some of the great things that have come out of Invest Southwest are that there are corridor managers for each of the corridors. So in this case, there's representatives from the Greater Roseland Chamber of Commerce, Chicago Neighborhood Initiatives, Calumet Area Industrial Commission, which runs the SSA. So there's a full team there that's focused on the corridor and moving different projects forward. The City Department of Planning and Development has a number of different grants also available with a focus on these Invest Southwest corridors. So the Chicago Recovery Grant, there'll probably be a new opening for that in the new year. The Neighborhood Opportunity Fund will again open in the new year as well. And a number of the retailers along Michigan Avenue have received an NOF grant. Most recently, Old Fashioned Donuts received a large grant to renovate their space because it's such a great popular restaurant there. We have SPIF along the corridor, and then also the TIF District Purchase Rehab Program, which provides funding for people looking to rehab mixed use properties. And this is a great program in that it really focuses on the rehab of existing buildings. Streetscape I mentioned earlier, and you can see the extent of that streetscape on the map on the right hand side here. So as I mentioned, it's full roadway reconstruction, lots of different design elements. There have been community meetings about this. So the design has been going on for quite some time. Construction is scheduled to start next year and run to 2025. So this is something that's going to be underway very shortly. Another piece is open space activation. There was the opening of, we call them POP parks on Halsted, 112th Street. So this is a great community resource if you're in the neighborhood. And then finally, the focus really is catalyzing private investment. And these numbers show, how, and these numbers have actually even gone up, showing how much investment has been made in these Invest Southwest corridors due to the Invest Southwest initiative and the different programs that fall under that umbrella. So with that, just to give some background on the neighborhood and all the exciting things that are happening and all the things that the existing retailers and residents are doing, we're gonna go into the RFQ process. John, I was just gonna run through this, but feel free. Okay, let me know if there's anything to add here. So an RFQ. So this is different than the request for proposals, RFPs, that the city had been doing. We've done a couple RFQs, and we decided to go with the RFQ format for Roseland because it really does offer a lot of benefits to people who are applying. So first, it reduces the burden in responding. As we're only requiring qualifications as a first step. So for requests for proposals, the city would actually expect that a developer and a design team come to the city with a fully baked proposal, designs in place, with tenants, and that is a really high barrier and is very expensive. So many people don't want to submit a proposal just because they'd be spending all this money without knowing if they'd even be selected in the end. So this replaces that burden and that we're only requiring qualifications. And the big news and big benefit is that the city received grant funding from Chicago Community Trust to provide up to $25,000 to each selected development team to create this proposal. So we'll go through the process in more depth, but this is an opportunity where people give their qualifications. We'll have them reviewed. Then once the development teams are created, there's this $25,000 that can be used to actually come up with a proposal, which will be due at a later time. We're also doing something new here, and that we're asking potential tenants to also reply. We've heard from a number of people that they'd love to be on Michigan Avenue to operate their businesses on Michigan, but sometimes have a hard time finding a spot that's ready to go and ready for their business. So this is just an opportunity for those people to put their names out there, and we'll be able to share a list of potential tenants to developers who put together a proposal. So just another way to sort of expand people who are participating. And this also ensures design excellence in new development. We're hoping that a number of architects as well as developers respond with their qualifications, and we can have a really broad pool to choose from in terms of architects. So just, I had mentioned RFPs. So this is just an example of the projects, some of the projects that the city has undertaken so far. So Roseland is the last corridor in the West Southwest corridors to seek these type of proposals and qualifications. So we're really excited to get this process started here. And what we're really focused on is building developer capacity and ensuring that development groups, the development teams look like the communities where they're developing. So you can see here some of the selected winners with larger and smaller developers, different architects, and this is just a way to again make sure that we have the broadest pool possible. And this is an example of some of the visions that we started with when we put out the first group of RFPs. And I'll go into a little bit too. We have visions for Michigan Avenue that we worked with the community and pro bono consultants to develop. Again, these are just visions. It's not necessarily what's going to end up at the end of the day, but it's just to give people an idea of the caliber of projects and the type of projects we're looking for. So these are renderings of the actual winners of those developments. You can see that the architects and development teams really came back with these amazing projects that have been vetted by the community, working to rehab buildings, do new construction. Many are mixed use. There's some commercial only. So there really is this broad gamut of projects, and they all have really excellent design components as well. So going a bit more in depth into the RFQ timeline. So we are here today, December 13th, on the pre-submission call. So we'll answer questions here, but then we are also accepting write-in questions to Michael Penisnak, whose information I'll share at the end, and that Q&A period ends January 13th. So if you don't think of your question today, it comes up later, be sure to get us an email by January 13th so we can answer that. The other main date here is January 27th, 2023. That's when we're asking for all responses to come in. And that's for developers, architects, and prospective tenants. And I'll go through some of the requirements for that response. If you look through the RFQ document, I hope you've all downloaded it. It'll go into a lot of specifics about what's needed, but just remember January 27th is the main day here. And then once we get all those responses in, there will be a jury evaluation where developers, architects, and prospective tenants will be selected to move on to stage 2. We don't have the full jury available now, but we'll certainly share that with you when as we get closer to that February date. So once the different developers, architects, and prospective tenants are selected, then we move into stage 2, the team pairing. So this will start in early February, or excuse me, mid-February. And we'll ask developers and architects to create teams to work together to create these proposals. So we'll have meetings where the developers and architects can talk to each other and meet and start putting those teams together. So by the end of February, we expect the developer and architecture teams to be finalized. And at that point, we will then give those teams the list of prospective tenants that they can start working with to incorporate in their proposal. So then once the teams are set, then we move into stage 3, which is focused on the project proposal and evaluation. So in late March, the proposal development begins. We don't yet have an exact date, but proposals will be due in April. And we'll also ask that the teams provide videos showing their proposals. And then we will start to assess those proposals in May. And we hope to have an announcement by late May that the proposals are chosen. I should mention too that we have funding available for teams for all 3 sites, and we're looking at a maximum of 3 teams per each site, so a total of 9 teams is what we're looking for here. So once we finish with stage 3 by late May, this is when we really start then getting into pre-development and start working very closely with the community on moving forward there. So this is the same information, but in a bit of a different outline if you're more of a visual thinker. So we have RFQs for the designers, architects, developers, prospective tenants. Everyone's response is due January 27th. Then we move into the teaming phase in February with the developers and designers. Once those teams are created, we will share the list of prospective tenants to start to engage with those teams. Then we go into proposal prep. And this is the $25,000 stipend to create the proposal. These will be due in late May. And what we're really looking to meet is the DOH LIHTC application, which is in June. So
Eric, there's a couple questions coming in already.
Sure.
that we might just answer now because they're related to this.
Yes,
so one
please.
question is, will DPD be forming the teams ourselves or allowing them to choose? And the answer is the latter. We will shortlist a collection of designers and a collection of developers, at which point we'll host sort of a public meet and greet, or not, sorry, a dedicated meet and greet session where each of the groups will present their qualifications and portfolio. And then DPD will step away and usually provide about a 2-week window for the developers to select their design team from that short list. And then you'll come back to us with your preferred teaming. So that's the process we've done in the past. While we're doing this though, another question. If you submitted for the initial pre-qualification organized by CAC and were approved, do you have to submit qualifications again? Yes, this is different from the Invest Southwest pre-qualified shortlist. So these qualifications are specifically for this project itself. And we will do a separate evaluation in this regard. As Erica mentioned before, we've done a couple of these now. This is our 3rd RFQ that we're releasing. We've learned a bit from the previous rounds, and we are trying to reduce the barriers to entry as much as possible. So we've removed as much paperwork from the RFQ process as possible. So you're submitting some basic information on your firm and your portfolio. And then if you are selected to move forward, we'll be asking for additional information, but we're trying to make it as easy as possible.
Then there's one more there, John from, oops, where'd it
I think
go?
we got it. Yeah, we covered it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. Um, so the RFQ response, part of the package that you should download from the website is the RFQ response form, which is shown here. So for developers, we're asking to fill out the form to select a site. And if you want to respond for more than one site, ask you to please put your first choice there as well, and then give some background information. Again, the full details are in the RFQ. This is just very high level, asking for just a letter with an executive summary, a description of the development team, an org chart, a portfolio of comparable completed projects. This is important. Financial information, and then sort of a project scope and narrative. What do you see as a proposed project here? Again, it's not a full proposal, just sort of the scope and breadth of what you're thinking for either one site or 2 or 3 sites. Architect responses, again, please fill out the form and also select if there's any particular site you're interested in and give a first choice if applicable. Again, give us the cover form, a transmittal letter with a summary, a description of the design team, an org chart, a portfolio of comparable completed projects, and then a project narrative. How do you see yourself going, developing a proposal, and the main uses and sort of design ideas you would have for the site. And then finally, for prospective tenants, again, we ask that you fill out the RFQ response form, give us just an introductory letter and summary, a description of the business team, an org chart of the business team, and then a business plan. And we go into a little bit more detail about what we're looking for in the business plan. But it includes things like how the business would pay rent, what sort of space they're looking for, and that sort of basic information. So I will check the Q&A. So John, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, so there's a question that says, are we able to submit our own teams, or does each team go in individually and select their ideal coalition after their qualifications are approved? So right, what we're trying to do with the RFQ process is obviously select the developers. From the design side, we are looking to qualify or shortlist, let's say, the design lead firm only, so the lead architect primarily. There will be an opportunity to bring on the necessary sub-consultants and supporting firms once the teams are formed. But for the submissions, we ask that you do not submit your own consultant team. Submit the lead design firm. That said, if the lead design firm feels they want to form a team with if it's not a town firm that wants to partner with a local architect, that's fine. We just ask that you form or indicate that you will form a joint venture for that process. To sort of formalize that relationship. So we're not trying to sort of see who has the best team of sub-consultants here. We want the lead design firms to submit. And again, you can partner in a joint venture. At this point, all we need is just a letter, an MOU or something, a letter saying that you intend to form that joint venture. We don't have to have it legally formed for your submission. That can happen later on if you are selected.
And then she followed up with, can a developer submit with an architect team?
No, no, sorry. Thanks for the clarification. No, developers should submit their own, their firm qualifications. Architects will submit separately. We ask that you do not indicate teams in that regard. The intent here is to sort of encourage new relationships and connect local developers with some new firms they haven't worked with locally, or perhaps even some out-of-town firms that are new to the Chicago market. And we're seeing some really good results from the first RFQs, and so we'd like to sort of continue that process. But if you have a firm, you can certainly encourage them to submit, and they'll be evaluated separately from the developer's proposal or submission.
And then this question, I don't know if you wanted to take this one, John. Project examples. Can they be in progress or in design phase?
We'll leave that somewhat to you. The jury will look at all projects that are submitted. I would recommend strongly that you do have some built examples. Obviously, we're hoping to take these projects forward into a construction phase. We want them to be real. So if you have ideas that are on the boards or in progress that you think are relevant, you can certainly include those, but the jury will be looking at the technical capacity of the developer and design firms to actually deliver on built examples.
In terms of submitting for all sites, an RFQ phase or just one, that's really up to you. You can just select one, or you could select more than one. If you do select more than one, we ask that you put your first choice in, or let us know which one is your first choice on the form. And then this one, if you've been shortlisted for a different site, do you still need to respond to this RFQ? John?
The answer to that is yes. We have actually, as I mentioned previously, we've sort of actually removed a few of the requirements for submission. So if you've been selected previously, or if you submitted for the previous RFQs in East Garfield Park or Woodlawn, you can frankly reuse a lot of the information that you have already assembled. We'll obviously ask for an updated cover letter specific to this process, but it should be a fairly easy lift to resubmit, but you will have to resubmit to be evaluated.
Thank you. So, and feel free to keep typing in questions. I'm going to move on to focus specifically on the vision that was developed for Roseland and Michigan Avenue corridor. There was some community engagement that started back in 2021, where we had different visioning workshops. We also had a more recent visioning workshop in October of this year. Pretty good turnout. We had community conversations and stakeholder interviews. And then the Invest Southwest roundtables for Roseland and Pullman. These ideas were discussed in those as well. So we were fortunate to work with a really great team led by, why am I blanking? What's the name of the team, John?
Smith Group?
SCB?
Smith Group.
Oh, Smith.
Thank
Oh,
you.
sorry.
Sorry. Smith Group. Wow. I'm very sorry. Sorry, Smith Group. You're amazing. You've done a lot of great work here. Also, there was some outreach related to the Red Line extension. The city and CTA are currently partnering on a transit supportive development plan. So there was some discussion about different development types and things in the community as part of this plan as well. I think one of the things that people find really exciting about Michigan Avenue is the historical context. I always say that you can't recreate this type of built environment today. It's just such a unique experience to walk along this really great retail street, mixed-use street, and much of the original architecture is still there. Some of it may be hidden behind some signs and things like that, but a lot of that infrastructure and sort of feel is still there. These are just some photos of some of the different buildings along the corridor. You can see a real detail and lots of brick and natural stone and terracotta, and these and lots of different architectural points here as well too. You can see all these sort of fun little bump outs on the various buildings and different architectural details on the cornices. So this is something the community wanted to stress, that this is a built corridor. It's probably one of the most intact commercial corridors we have in the Invest Southwest program. And they want to ensure that any future development really fits in with the existing context. Corridor assets, there are a number of great businesses along the corridor. I mentioned Old Fashioned Donuts recently received a grant to rehab and update their interior and allow for more seating space for people to actually gather in there. Bass Furniture and Rug has been there for many, many years and also received an NOF grant. Edwards Fashions is a great staple. Where's Steakhouse just reopened after a fire, but is now open, looks great. Go, please go check it out. In addition to just the very few number of businesses I mentioned here, there are a number of different businesses along the corridor. The Chicago Fire Department is right outside, Curtis Elementary School, the North Ward Alderman's office. And as I had mentioned as well, you're right down the street from Pullman National Monument, and a lot of the other assets that are located east and west of the area. Corridor transit. The red line extension is coming, as I discussed earlier. And but today there are a number of bus line connections you can see in the map. And then also Metra is not far away either, just east of the sites. So now moving into the actual 3 sites. They're located, or we numbered them north to south. So the first site is the old Gately Peoples site. So I'm sure some of you remember the big Gately People department store that was located here. It was torn down after a fire a couple summers ago. So, one benefit is that we have this really great site available for redevelopment. It fronts on Michigan Avenue at the corner of 112th Street and then wraps around to Edbrook Avenue. And then the second site is the Roseland Theater Building. The Roseland Theater Building is privately owned, but there's a city-owned land right adjacent to it. And the owner of the theater is very interested in working with a developer and selling the property and getting it rehabbed. And then finally, we have the Michigan Station site. So this is at the corner of Michigan Avenue and 115th Street. The new red line extension Michigan Avenue station will be located at the southernmost portion of the site. Some of the site, and we'll go through the details in a bit, will be used for CTA infrastructure for the station, but there still is the much of the site available for transit-oriented development. So to go back up to the Gately People Store site, Michigan Avenue is where my cursor is here, 112th Street. So we're sort of looking south and east. In terms of program, Smith Group helped us put together this program of ground floor retail with multifamily residential above, parking off the alley, and then to better fit into the existing single family context on Edbrook, single family or townhome units there. So this is a site plan, again, for illustrative purposes only, sort of showing what could be developed here. Focused on mixed use development on Michigan Avenue, the single family on Edbrook, with loading and service off of the alley in the back, and with lots of opportunities for green roofs, and then also some setbacks and creating pedestrian spaces along the sidewalk. And this is a rendering that Smith Group developed, again, with a focus on brick. Here we have a bit of metal too, so really focusing on those natural materials, a lively street front, and a building that's sort of set back, or that has setbacks, so the size doesn't overwhelm the existing context on the corridor. The Roseland Theater Building is shown here. So again, privately owned, but the city has about a 13,600 square foot site immediately adjacent to it. This is a program that was developed during the community process, where the existing theater building can be adaptively reused for commercial use, or arts or culture or something of that nature. And the city-owned lot can support those types of uses with outdoor stage and gathering area and venue, with some auxiliary and support retail as well. And then this is just another view showing how the theater building can relate to the adjacent city-owned properties, and how it relates to the street. And then this is a rendering showing the rehab theater building with the new extension and the adjacent supportive uses. And then the third site is at 115th and Michigan. So the city now owns the property. For some time, it was in a land trust. We were able to get the property back, so now the city fully owns the property. And CTA and DPD have worked with the community for potential development scenarios on the site. So this is, again, for illustrative purposes, sort of the site that we're looking at to be redeveloped at this time. The north west corner is currently privately owned and is not part of this project. The CTA will have a bus station and bus terminal and also parking in addition to the station in Michigan Avenue. So we're looking at redeveloping this corner of 115th and Michigan at this site here. This is generally just sort of a bulk diagram of what's could be developed with retail at the ground floor with large plates, and then residential above, and with some green space and mid-block connections there as well. And then this is a rendering looking south down Michigan Avenue. You can see the station in the background, and then the new developments located on Michigan and 115th. So just again, to recap, these are the three sites that are available. And again, you can put down one or more sites. If you do put down more than one site, please do specify your first choice as well.
We should clarify something there, Erica.
Sure.
Just to be clear, the city is in the position to support one of these projects in this initial phase from a financial standpoint. So that will be part of the evaluation is we ask people to propose for any of these sites. Again, state your preference, but in this RFQ, we'll be supporting one development in this round.
Sure. But the teams, there will be up to 3 teams for each site that will receive funding to generate our proposal. So finally, I just wanted to run through some of the dates again. Q&A period ends January 13th. The responses are due January 27th. February is when we start getting into team pairing. At the end of February, the developer and architecture teams are created. We'll share the list of prospective tenants. And then we'll move into stage 3, which is generating the proposals. And then we hope to have an announcement at the end of May. So with that, we'll again go back to the Q&A and feel free to add more questions as they come up. So the first question is, will a list of this webinar's attendees be made public? And yes, we will have that on our website, as well as a recording of this, so people can go back and watch. Another question is the interior of the Roseland Theater intact or has it been altered? Is it the expectation that the site selected for, or excuse me, the team selected for site 2 will pursue historic incentives? So the theater, the head house of the theater, the 2-story portion, is habitable and can be rehabbed. The rear of the theater is probably not able to be rehabbed at this point, would need to be demolished, but we would like to see that area rebuilt. And I think there absolutely is an argument to be made to seek historic incentives, Class L or otherwise. The historic preservation team at DPD has been looking at this corridor and has a lot of background information about architects and uses on the different sites. So we think there's a really good argument to be made to seek those incentives. And will preference be given to the teams? This first go around, the stage 1, we're really just looking at the qualifications of developers and architects and prospective tenants. Once the teams are assembled and the proposals are generated, we'll be looking for a pro forma for those teams. But again, that's stage 2, that's a bit later. So again, we'll just be looking for the pro forma. Can teams have more than one prospective tenant? Absolutely. We just have seen in other cases in other areas where developers have had a hard time finding a tenant, or they found a tenant that the community doesn't really appreciate, and that may be in competition. So this just gives the opportunity for businesses to put their names out there and you know, have an opportunity to be included in these projects. So however the tenancy would work in the building, you know, you certainly can use that. Second question, so is only one site being selected this round, or will the city only fund one site project? So for this first round, we do have the funding in place to fund 3 development teams. That's the developer and architect teams that will be put together. 3 of those for each site. So a total of 9 teams total. At the end of the day,
for the grants, just to be clear, for the grants, right?
Yes.
The design grant, right?
The design grant. After that, we're going to have to take a hard look at the proposals that we get back in and how they're funded and what sort of incentives are used. We don't have a ton of TIF funding here, so we can only say for certain that we would be able to do one project, but depending on the pro formas and the incentives needed, you know, we certainly want to do more than one project, but right now we can only commit to one project. Will the evaluation jury be looking for similar responses to the project narrative between developer and architect submissions, and will that inform how teams are paired?
I can take that one. So
yeah, please.
No, the jury will be shortlisting and evaluating developers and architects separately based on the merits of their firm. Obviously, they will look at the narrative on their intent for the site, but they'll be selected separately. We are not, DPD, just to be clear, is not taking part of the pairing process. We will through our jury shortlist the firms, and we will leave it to the shortlisted firms to create their team. There will probably be a couple more design firms than developers in most cases, so that we're not trying to create any forced marriages, if you will. We're not forcing relationships here.
Thank you. And then, so of 9 potential proposals, one project will be the ultimate winner. Yes, we could commit to one project. But as we've seen in other corridors, that one project often leads to other ideas. And this is the main goal of this, is to generate ideas and excitement around the corridor. We'll be able to commit to funding one project, but this is a situation where we hope these snowball into other potential projects as well. Feel free to add any questions you may have. And let me put up this last slide. So Michael Penisnack on the Far South team is the contact person. If you have a question that comes up later, before January 13th, send Michael an email and we'll collect all of those questions and put them in a Q&A document that we'll post online after January 13th. So please take down Michael's information. Seen here. Any other questions? We really appreciate everyone's time today. We have a good turnout. And appreciate the really good questions. Okay, if we choose to submit on all 3 sites, should we submit 3 separate RFQ responses? No, just one RFQ response per developer, architect, potential tenant. And it's really just the narrative around the 3 different sites, what your vision is. If and keeping in mind the sort of differences between the sites, 2 of them are looking for more of mixed use. One is really looking more at commercial or cultural use without residential. One is more focused to transit-oriented development and has a larger floor plate. One is more sort of neighborhood multi-family with ground floor retail. So really take into account the visions for the 3 different sites. But no, you don't have to create 3 different RFQs. And when you say one project, will that mean only one site? That's what we could commit to today, is one project on the one site. We've seen in other cases where, we were able to fund the one project, but because we had so much interest and we had so many different responses from people and different proposals, that we could continue to keep the ball rolling and get more private investment involved. But in terms of city investment, there's really only one project that we can work on right now on one site. How will the decision be made on which site to move forward with? So this is when the proposals come in, we'll ask for a lot of information regarding how the projects are funded and what types of incentives are needed to fund the projects. And that will be how it's determined. If one of the sites is able to be easily funded, ready to go, we'll focus more on that. If another site, doesn't have the funding needed or needs incentives above and beyond what we can provide, that's, one that we probably wouldn't move forward with. So, we'll be able to provide more information on the proposals we're looking for when we get to that second stage. Has the city decided on which site? No. We're focused on all 3 of these sites and excited to see the responses we get back for the qualifications piece, and looking to make those matches between developers and architects, and then add in the potential tenants, and see how we can get 3 really good proposals for the 3 sites. How will you decide which sites gets the funding? So are all the submissions competing not only with other submissions for the specific site, but with other sites as well? Yes, essentially, yes. So we have the grant funding to create proposals for the 3 different sites, 3 teams on 3 sites. But once we get to the proposal part, we start reviewing the proposals. Again, we're looking to see how projects are funded, what the performance look like. And so yes, there'll be selected proposals for each site, but we can only commit to moving forward on one at this point. I know that, will the 3 teams be engaged in another selection process to determine which site will move forward? Yes. So we didn't really focus on this today, but there will be an evaluation of proposals submitted in stage 2 that will evaluate those proposals and select the one for each site, and then which one we would move forward with. John, did you want to add something?
No, I want to clarify that. I think what that person's asking is there's not sort of a tournament style where like we pick one of each of the 3, right? They'll be evaluated collectively. So up to 9 proposals will be evaluated together. It's not like the best of the Gately site versus the best of the we will be supporting. There'll be up to 9 proposals being offered with the development with the design grants. If we get 3 proposals for each site, that'd be wonderful. We're not necessarily anticipating that, so I don't want people to think that the odds are stacked against them in terms of it's 1 of 9. I think we want to see a project move forward here. There's pros and cons to each site, and that'll be evaluated, as part of the evaluation from the jury and that selection process. But we're looking forward to seeing some great ideas for all 3 sites, hopefully. And again, committing to one in this round, we'd like to find other avenues to look at future, other ideas as future projects down the road. But we can't commit to that today, obviously.
If I could just add to that, I think one thing that our recent efforts have shown is that when we approach development in this way, it inevitably creates a pipeline. I think part of this effort is trying to visualize what that pipeline looks like and have it ready for future funding cycles, funding rounds, funding that may come up. And so that's really one of the ultimate goals here. We can only commit to one now, but we're being very intentional in creating a pipeline of development for this area.
Yes, thank you, Gerardo. So that's the end of the presentation. I could stay on for a couple more minutes. I know John has to jump off. But again, please, if you think of a question after today, please send it to Michael Pennisnack at the email address shown there, and we'll get back to you. I have another question here. I believe you said that this is the beginning of the meeting for, so this is the last and best Southwest area to go through the RFQ process. So that's why we're really excited for Michigan Avenue to sort of get the spotlight here and have some great proposals submitted, and for the community to be able to take a look at them as well and respond. So yes, this is the last corridor you know, we do have some, we do have another RFQ out for a different area. It's not in the Best Southwest corridor. So we do have some other RFQs that are not in the Best Southwest, but this is the last one in the Best Southwest program. Okay. But I just want to say thank you to everyone for taking the time today to attend. I know it's a time commitment, so I appreciate that. We will have a recording of this on our website probably tomorrow to give us some time to get it up there. We'll have a list of people who've attended. We'll have this presentation up. And then also, you know, please download the RFQ, take a look at the more detailed requirements. And we look forward to getting a number of people to respond. So yes, hosts and okay, so it'll be on the request for proposal website that you can find that. All right, excellent. Well, with that, David, I think we can close out the meeting.
Will do. Thanks for joining, everyone.
Thank you.